Hey guys, this is James and Tim with Tabletop Terrors. Today we are doing our first ever live, it's not live, damage reduction straight from the same place we always do it. You know what?
The Halls of Montezuma.
The Halls of Montezuma.
And the shores of Tripoli.
But we are doing a on-video damage reduction. This is usually a podcast that we do about world building, specifically world building our own world. But today we're going to do it on video, and it's going to be a little bit different. We are going to use inspiration to come up with a bunch of cool stuff.
So, stay tuned, and you'll see why it's going to be different.
Okay.
And you'll see the text again. I thought I had it on my hippers. So, for this damage reduction...
Oh, I got to interrupt you.
Tell me.
We got to talk about
this so I can okay. So usually we save our energy drinks for either our Beyond the Rules videos or like the Tabletop Off Topic, and we kind of review it. I'll give you a rough review of this energy drink, but James and I have been staring at him for 10, 15 minutes while we've been setting up.
We wanted to do damage reduction first, but we also wanted to drink energy drinks. This is happening.
So this is the NOS Zero, and the flavor is charged citrus. They have some sort of enhanced energy blend called Complex 6, but it's spelled CMPLX 6. That seems like too long of a word to try to abbreviate like that.
Yeah.
Like, you're close to
because they removed 2 characters and added 1, so I'm like, you're only net negative 1. Just write complex, whatever.
So, all right, let's bust
Same as everybody else. Let's do it.
The reason why this damage reduction is going to be different is because
these are supercharged. That's why. Oh, I hope it's not bad. I didn't even consider that.
Mm. What do you think?
Okay, not my favorite.
I think, here's the thing. It's pretty good. What we did, the mistake we made, was we let these sit. Mine is sweating onto our electronics. So it's not the best at room temperature.
It tastes, though, it's relatively cold.
Yeah.
But it tastes like sour bright crawlers. Trolley bright crawlers.
Straight up.
Like 100%.
With a hit of aspartame. At the end. Is that what that is?
Probably.
Anyway, sure.
Guarantee it's in there. Erythritol.
So this isn't the best, but it's not the worst. I'd suggest considering picking one up and then rethinking it and then maybe getting it after all.
Maybe getting it because they're on sale. They were buy one, get one for $1.
So, can't beat that. Well, you can. Paying for something
literally
you like,
can. You know,
it's worth spending money. Anyway, our campaign world is the campaign world of Dragongrin. James and I are half of the company Absolute Tabletop, and we put out supplements, and we are in the process of writing our campaign world book, and that's going to be called The Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin. We wanted to do it a little differently, and so it's an interesting thing because we don't want to define the world too much because we want to leave room for game masters to make their own Dragongrin.
Yeah.
But we don't want to define it too little because people are interested in the world that we're writing, so you can't go so sparse on it that people aren't getting what they're paying for. So, this damage reduction is going to actually be using a book from AbsoluteTabletop.com. And if I'm not lazy when I edit this video, which I might be, so we're going to be using Be a Better Campaign Master, Book 1. And that is called Building the World. And this book is a step-by-step guide to take you from a blank sheet of paper to a finished, mapped campaign world. So if you don't have it, head over to AbsoluteTabletop.com now and pick up Be a Better Campaign Master, Book 1, Building the World. You told me you like these questions in here.
Yeah, so there's a list of over 100 questions that are just, they're very non-specific, but they're very good at making you think. And you'll see when we start to get into some of them what I mean by that. But they're questions like, do people like ale or wine more in your world?
Right.
And immediately that brings up 4 or 5 different questions that I want to answer about my world. It's just a little bit of inspiration to kind of get our minds going. And we're going to do that with Dragongrin. We're going to go through some of these questions and just have a good time and kind of see where that leads us.
Yeah, and so these questions are at the bottom of every page.
Also, they're all compiled at the end in sort of a workbook style. If you get Campaign Master and you just wanted to answer them, you could print those out. They're blank pages. You can print those 2, 3, or 4 maybe pages and write in if you wanted.
Yeah.
Exactly what you wanted your answers to be.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. And the reason why I'm going to use the bottom of the pages is because I want to scroll through the book and maybe be inspired. We put some game science dice here. We got a dice tower in case we hit a roll table we want to go ahead and just go nuts on. But we're not going to do, obviously, all 100 questions in this video. We'll probably do this for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But we'll try to do this in pieces. I'd like to try to finish all the questions if we can, eventually. So, scrolling down, the first question is on page 8 because there's an intro and so on. So the first question's on page 8. How many moons orbit your world?
Stuck already.
Abort.
I don't know.
What I should actually say is, to give a little bit of context, Dragongrin is a place where evil has won. So the good guys lost, and there's this sort of big bad guy called the Dismembered Lord who rules over everything. But the catch is, things aren't that different. In other words,
for normal people. 80% of people.
The Dismembered Lord, as it is now, wasn't looking to turn the world into fire and brimstone. He was just looking to be in charge and left most of it how it was.
Yeah.
However, it's very Machiavellian because he's evil. So just to kind of set you up as we're talking about things, that's the primer, a very brief primer for Dragongrin. You actually maybe would know this, yeah? Because of... Okay, this is even...
I was going to say, we can't put each other on the spot like this because...
Well, no, here's why. Because in our... Okay. At Absolute Tabletop... At Absolute Tabletop, it's our YouTube channel, Tabletop Terrors. The YouTube channel, A Fistful of Dice, created by Matt Click. And then the YouTube channel, Be a Better Game Master, by Barker. All of our campaign worlds are in the realm of Arbitron. Now, this realm is, I guess you could call it a planet or whatever you want to call it. There is this arcane energy called the Bleak that separates the major continents. So while the worlds are in the same place, they're in the same plane, they're not easy to get from one to another.
And that is even if they all say exist at the same time. It's the kind of thing
right,
where...
we've never really... Well, we have defined it in... So here's one thing. We play in each other's campaigns. So James and I play in a campaign of Barker's. I play in a campaign of Matt's. There is one of the characters that I play in Barker's campaign who's from A Fistful of Dice's campaign, Aeronoth. This is probably not going well for anyone watching. They're like, I think that's going to answer the question.
Like, how many moons? Just tell me.
The reason why all that came into play is because during one of the games, Barker had you name the moons.
Well, yes, yeah, and I realized once you were talking, I was like, oh, yeah.
So, that's why I had to set that all up, because the moons, theoretically, maybe, are the same moons for all of these places, and we have characters in all of the continents. So
the answer
to you
is 3 moons. 3 moons orbit the world of Dragongrin. Next question. Well, we spent so long on that one.
This is the thing I've always thought of. I feel like that there should be something interesting about that personally. Like, I feel like there should be a 4th moon that only shows up. 4th moon that only shows up when the moons are in alignment or something.
Sure.
So anyway, if nothing else, that conversation served to set a really good backdrop for some of the other things we might mention, or Aeronoth, or like the example map in Be a Better Campaign Master is Barker's World of Ankea. So you can see that if you get it. So, if all the questions are that long, we'll get through 2.
Yep.
Hey guys, we're pulling a Carney. So on page 9, how many astrological symbols are in the night sky? You want me to jump in?
Sure.
I think in Dragongrin, it depends who you ask.
Well, and that's fair. I think this is so a lot of these questions assume certain things, and that a question like this requires you to think about other things. Do people look at the stars?
Sure.
Do people study the stars?
Sure.
Like, I think so.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think it depends on who you ask, but I could see there being, a few very popular ones. In the same way that, we have some. Where a normal person might know 2 or 3 that they could pick out on the right night.
Sure. And I think it would be interesting if just seeing the two sides of things, because you've got evil in control, and whoever's in control gets to write history essentially. It would just be interesting to see if, say, an astrologist or someone who did study the stars, who was even neutral to the dismembered lord, just like, hey, I'm just trying to eke out a living, would know better than to call a constellation an old hero.
Yeah.
Even for instance, let's say one of the constellations in the sky is called the Dreaded Champion, and he's this, this powerful hero who slew a dragon, and it's kind of against the dismembered lord's theology and all that kind of stuff. So even if you slip, I was like, oh yeah, the Dreaded Champion. The what?
Yeah, exactly. It probably has a different name to most people.
Right. So to me, I think it's not as important as to how many astrological symbols there are in the night sky, but this highlights the fact that if you say the wrong thing or use the wrong phrase, or it's sort of like that. Is it 1986? The Orwellian novel 1986, where it's like Big Brother's watching. So, I mean, I know that's the novel where Big Brother's watching.
1982?
1984? Why did I say 1986?
I don't know, but as soon as you said 1986, I'm like, I've read this book.
I'm usually
1982. 1982 is where I'm putting my money.
I should have... Why do I not know this? This is the worst video we've ever done. That's the only comments... Listen, I understand, and you're not wrong. The only comments...
They can't comment anymore. We fixed it.
Oh, okay. So, I guess
unless
the point
it's 1981.
It's got to be 1984.
1984. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It is. Okay.
This is the least reduction of damage we've ever done in a damage reduction.
Next question. Come on. We get what you're saying. I think that we need to be quicker. How many...
I don't want to. I want to...
I guess, okay. Okay. You're right.
Like, we could just answer that, but that's... I don't know. Is that fun?
Well, I mean, this one. No. I see what you're saying. I
hear you. Listen.
I guess
These always... Listen. This is the truth. These always seem dumb when we're recording them. That's just the God's honest truth. And then we go back and we listen. It's like, oh, that was like 25% less dumb than I thought it was.
Okay, but we are on the next one.
It's question 10.
How many suns are there in the night sky?
I thought night sky too.
That's not what it says.
Guys, we're going to have to we're going to hibernate and dream it all up again. Time for another
Sorry,
relish.
let me read it actually. I read the beginning and then I
you said it
extemporaneously added in the last one.
Swagger. How many suns are there in the night sky? Coming at you, night sky.
Suns are there in the sky? One?
One.
A lot of these are going to be like, oh, I never thought of that. One?
Yeah, and there's
just the one.
There's no long Tim answer for that one. It's just one. Next. That could be an interesting answer for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a desert planet with 3 suns. Is land ownership important for a citizen's social status?
Well, okay, so I feel like in Dragongrin, you don't want to have social status.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Now, to be clear, there are multiple different regions, I think we're calling them, sort of different areas that are separated by this arcane energy called the Bleak. Some are separated, some are on the same sort of continents, you could say. Mm-hmm. And so some places, this isn't going to apply. In some places, things are more, we'll say, quote-unquote, normal fantasy, where the Dismembered Lord has taken over the largest landmass in Dragongrin, our world.
Think of it as like our little Middle Earth.
Exactly. There are other places, a bunch of other places you can go and that people live. But specifically, in the land of Grin and sort of that area that is under the Dismembered Lord's control, land ownership probably means more bad than good.
Right. I also feel like you don't own anything unless you're given something by the dismembered lord. If Grin is the city in which the dismembered lord, or the region in which the dismembered lord rules, and his shadow extends, and the further away from Grin you get, the less powerful his grip is, on day-to-day life. To me, I feel like in the outskirts, there are people who, farmers and, their land belongs to the dismembered lord. If he wanted to march an army in there and take
and I think that's the important thing, is it's like, you own your land, but there's very much like...
But I own your butt.
No questions asked, like eminent domain. Like, oh, you had a really good wheat harvest? We're going to take it. We need it.
Right.
I'm like, well, you're a farmer. What are you going to do? And you're just kind of like, oh, well, that's sucks, but I guess so.
Right.
I'm not dead, so that's good.
Now, that brings up something else interesting. James and I were having a conversation. So this realm of Grin, where the dismembered lord, calls home, essentially, this region, it's pretty large. It would be probably about I'm just spitballing, but like a third of the United States.
Yeah. Right.
Is kind of the way I would think of it. I think the dismembered lord would want to keep the lesser villains able to do what they want, and also in his charge, cooperating with them, but still in power.
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, the way to do that is divide up the lands among them.
Yeah, basically, make vassals. Like, hey,
exactly.
You guys do your thing. I'm still over you, but I'm giving you creative control.
Exactly. And then the way I look at this is it's like, I'm a comic book reader, so it would be like in the Marvel universe if Thanos, say, is in charge, he's like, all right, Loki, you get a slice. Red Skull, you get a slice. Doctor Doom, you get a slice, which Doctor Doom's always going to try to win the day anyway. But that's the point.
I think they all are.
Well, but that's the point, is that giving all of these lesser evils a slice where they can do whatever they want, and then make it so that perhaps the only way that you would have to go in front of a tribunal where the dismembered lord is there is if there's any conflict between barony to barony, or whatever you want to call it. Like, if they're fighting each other, he calls them both ahead of them, and, he's basically, hey.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think, so as far as, is land ownership important for a citizen's social status? Probably not a citizen's, but to one of those barons, those vile barons, those lords of ash, or whatever you want to call them, I think that it's important that you have land and that you keep it up, because that's kind of your pass,
And I think an important thing about that is, so these sort of barons, to some degree, they don't want to just kill everybody,
No.
because they need to perform for the dismembered lord to some degree. Like, as soon as their usefulness dries up, he's replacing them.
Sure.
So if you're, Red Skull, Lord of Ash, Baron of this place, you just killed everybody, this dismembered lord would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's your economy?
Yeah,
what's
going on?
your output going to be? What's your, and I can even see some of them pitching him like, listen, I'm a necromancer, and while that seems crazy, I'm going to kill a third of my population. I'm going to turn them, because
I'm going to reanimate them.
I'm going to reanimate them.
They don't need food, and they have to listen to me.
Exactly, and they'll be
really cool idea, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's the idea. Is that but he has to pitch this to the dismembered lord. Now, where there becomes an issue is when those undead start roaming into the other baronies,
or stop listening, or
right.
If there's a zombie-like situation where it can spread, and the necromancer didn't consider that.
Exactly.
And the whole population begins to change, and they can't farm, and it's just...
Right.
Yeah.
Because you'll always find an orc chief with too much pride that would never bend a knee. But you'll always find some other orc chief that will.
Exactly.
And so I just imagine that in Grin, this divided up into these 6 or 12 or 8 or whatever, that would just be an interesting hotbed of conflict, because before you even get to the dismembered lord, if you're just a commoner and you're just wandering into Grin, what gate are you going to take?
Yeah, exactly.
To get in, are you going to go
they
through
wouldn't
this
necessarily
one,
be even walled off. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I'm sure there are some jurisdictional disputes. Or no, that's my citizen to punish and crucify.
Right. So yeah, that's land ownership, and that's I think kind of gives more of a picture of how Dragongrin is.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more if we make it reasonable. So
Joke. You got jokes, Timmy boy.
I got all kind of jokes. All right, so this is a good one. How dangerous is the winter here?
Okay, so I think that very dangerous depending on who you are. For anybody that does, have a house, and usually there are cities and villages that are going to be relatively safe, even in Grin, the worst part of everything. Because there's Grin, and then there's a large mountain range, and then on the other side of that is Innis, which, while not directly controlled by the Dismembered Lord, the sort of government, we'll say, of the people was somewhat sundered. It's a bit in disarray, we'll say.
Well, and the way I like to look at it, very briefly, like I said, if you look at a map of the United States, the far east would be Grin. The middle of the country would be the Sphere Mountains, which are just these impassable, crazy mountain ranges. And then the west would be Innis, where the good guys got whooped, but they're allowed to kind of stay.
Yeah, the Dismembered Lord doesn't occupy Innis.
Correct.
But it's still kind of no man's land a little bit. There are places, but it's dangerous, and there's no police, and the government is shaken and destroyed. So, all that to say that winter is going to be very dangerous, but I think it will be most dangerous in Grin because, like I said, talking about land ownership, if you had a really good harvest and you're saving up for winter, you might be tempted to hide some of that from the Dismembered Lord so that they don't take it all for themselves and say, screw you. But, so you have two choices. You either hide some, potentially get caught and certainly get killed and made an example of, or you don't hide any and there's a chance they take all of it.
Yeah, I love that because my mind immediately went to the elements and your mind went to the societal kind of ramifications.
Like how are people going to survive in the winter?
That's great. So throwing in something else is that the way that we're sort of lining up the world as of now, it's very mappy and not really realistic, so to speak. Here's actually a rough map. You won't be able to see it. I actually think it's just a gray dot.
Yeah, I was like, and it's a little out of focus, I think. It's
not
even worth holding up.
I don't think I'm going to put the map in the video.
No, it's not a map.
So it's not. It's
words on a paper, basically.
It's chicken scratch. That ain't a map. That's ants holding hands. No, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. So
we only have a minute left, and I'm going to laugh for the rest of it.
No, it's fine. All of that to say, we've decided, I think, there's only going to be one pole. Meaning, I don't know, maybe it'll be north, maybe. Right now,
there's going to be one area that's cold. I don't know.
It's cold up north, and then it gets hotter. I think if there is a bottom,
if there is another area, it's still a pole, it's just not cold.
It's a hot pole. So we might have a cold pole and a hot pole. So,
glad we wasted time on that.
Yeah,
okay.
It's key. That's key to your world.
But you basically have 30 seconds to tell them that the winter is not as bad in southern Grin.
So,
what we can do is we can go ahead and say, hey, we're going to cut here and maybe do some more.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, yeah, what we'll do, because the camera only records for a certain amount of time. So what we'll do, we'll cut here. So there'll be a quick break, and then we'll keep going. All right, guys, so this is actually going to be the end of part one, but don't worry. We're going to release both videos at the same time, but we're going to keep this part about 24 minutes just because most people don't have an hour to sit and listen to the whole thing.
And if they sit down and see anything over 1 hour on YouTube, they're like, nah.
So this way you can do it on a commute to work, to and from or whatever. So part two we're going to release right behind this, but for now, make sure to like, subscribe. Hopefully this was useful. Put what you think. What are the answers to your questions in your campaign world? Put that below in the comments. Any of the questions that we asked, we'd love to hear what you're doing in your campaign world. Or if you disagree with anything we did. I guess until next time, may your dice roll high. Good one. TabletopTerrors.com. Subscribe to our channel. We can never go back to Arizona.